Welcome to Shelby Say What, your go-to spot for building confidence, feeling your best, and living a life you actually love. Whether I'm chatting with experts or spilling my own favorite hacks, we're all about self-love, mindset shifts, and making confidence feel effortless. So whether you're driving, folding laundry, in between meetings or school drop-offs, let's make this little pocket of time you have about bettering you, because you deserve it. Welcome back to the Shelby Say What podcast. Today, we're diving deep into a topic that has completely transformed the way I approach healing, stress, and self-connection, somatic therapy. Joining me is my friend and my coach, Nikki. Hi, Nikki.
Hello.
A registered nurse, somatic practitioner, and energy worker who specializes in helping people cultivate connection and embodiment through a holistic approach that blends nervous system support, body awareness, and energy work. Nikki guides individuals towards deeper and more intuitive relationship with themselves and their bodies. In today's episode, we're breaking it down, what somatic therapy actually is and how it differs from traditional talk therapy, why healing isn't just in the mind, but it's also in the body, and how somatic work can rewire your nervous system and support everything from stress resilience to trauma recovery and so much more. If you've ever felt stuck in your healing journey or struggled with anxiety, burnout, or feeling disconnected from yourself, this episode is for you. Get ready for a powerful conversation that might just change the way you see your own body and mind. So let's dive in. Hi, Nikki. Thanks for joining.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So I obviously gave a little micro intro there about what we can expect from the episode today and the fact that you are my personal somatic coach. So I'm so excited to have you. Yes. And before I have you do a little intro, I do want to give a background to people who may not know. So obviously I got involved in healing work. I actually know Nikki through a friend of mine, Lauren. And Lauren is the head and founder of The Simplest Self, which is a trauma-informed somatic healing practice. And Nikki is one of the practitioners involved in that community. So obviously, as much as I would have loved to work with Lauren because we have that friendship first, she recommended me to Nikki, and it's been such a lovely experience. We have been working together for 6 months now, and I have coupled this with talk therapy, which is something we're going to dive into today because I know a lot of us, when we talk about our healing journeys, the first thing we talk about is honoring therapy and starting talk therapy, but me coupling this with somatic work and rewiring my nervous system has been life-changing. That's where Nikki comes in. So Nikki, will you give the audience just a little briefing on you and how you got involved in somatic coaching?
Yes, sure. I'd love to. So my background is actually in nursing, and I worked in the hospital setting for six years or so. And I actually started to recognize around maybe like 2016, 2017 that I had anxiety, boundary issues, didn't know how to put my needs first, and it was just so normal for me that I didn't know anything was wrong. And I actually had a friend at the time point it out to me, and I took it very seriously, and I started my own therapy journey. And after a few months, it just wasn't really resonating with me, and I was eventually pulled more toward the mind body avenue of healing. So I started studying Buddhism, I started practicing yoga, and that's kind of how that was my first somatic practice, really, was yoga and my meditation practice and things like that. And then I started my own alternative medicine practice, my alternative health practice, more so in the physical side of things. So I was looking at the way our physical symptoms were representing or showing us about our nervous system and the deeper root cause of healing or disease. But I was still very much in the world of like changing lifestyle, lowering toxic load, doing the detox protocols and everything. And I just continued to get sicker. I actually was on my deathbed a few times in that 4 to 5 year range. Like it was like 3 different times. So that is how I found somatics, is through working with the physical body, but knowing it was deeper rooted in the energetics and the nervous system side of things. Then I got into energy work, and then I got into somatic work. And what I found is you can't heal, you can't move, you can't create any change in any part of your life without the somatic component.
Yeah, something that really stuck out to me there is you said people feel stuck. And I think that's really imperative when we start talking about somatic work. So for anyone that's not familiar, can we just break it down? What is somatic work and healing?
Yeah, so it's kind of a buzzword now, right? Like we hear it.
Yeah.
If you're in the healing space, if you're looking to hear, your algorithms are likely showing you nervous system regulation and somatics, and you might be wondering what that is. So soma means the body of an organism in Greek. So somatics is our relationship to our body, our connection to our body. And most of us in our society are disconnected from our body, and that is where dis-ease happens. So when we are really young, a lot of times, whether it's the way we were raised or the environments we were raised in, or it's just a byproduct of our society, it could very much just be a byproduct of our society. For some of us, that societal conditioning, that lifestyle of go, 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 right? At some point, we are forced out of our body in order to remain in connection to our caregivers, in order to remain safe in our environments, and in order to be in line with societal expectations, we are forced out of our body. And so we all need to prioritize reconnection. There's natural cycles of connection and disconnection, and it's not realistic to be embodied and connected to every sensation, feeling, every aspect of your internal world, but we need to know how to get reconnected, or else we will have experiences that, like anxiety, depression, rumination, overthinking, self-doubt, lack of confidence. All of these symptoms come from disconnection from the body.
Yeah, why do you think it is that so much of healing up until this point has been so mind focused and has really lacked awareness around the body?
Yeah, I think that it reflects where we are as a society in this over masculinity. Like we're very much solution focused, fix it focused. Somatic healing isn't about fixing ourselves, it's about connecting with ourselves, right? So it takes a long time to get to a place where we even understand what that means. And I think we're just evolving as a society, and the more of us that wake up to the fact that healing actually only happens in the body, it starts to ripple out. But the disconnect, as a society, is reflected in our current healthcare system, even in the mental health aspect of it, through just harping on talk therapy alone as being the thing that we need for our mental health.
Yeah, and obviously as a client, I think I came to you at a point of where I was in overdrive and burnout, which I think is probably the case for a lot of your clients. We get to this point where, I know for me personally, I had been going go, go, go. I was really what's the right word? I idolized hustle culture in a way that eventually led me to crash and burn out. And that just goes to show, like, everything that was happening in the mind was also going to be proven to me in my body when I just completely crashed out. And I mean that like on a health sense too, because for me, I struggle with low cortisol, adrenal burnout, which are the first signs that your body has given up. You've been surviving in fight or flight for so long that your body's like, hey, you're not even listening to me at this point, so I give up. And that's just a little bit of background of how I came to see Nikki. There were a lot of things in my healing journey. I was navigating a lot of grief, a lot of harder, bigger things behind the scenes. But I wasn't doing anything to release those hard feelings. I was actually involved in talk therapy, and I was doing EMDR, which is a really, I would say, it's not invasive isn't the right word, but it is a very aggressive approach to therapy, especially in the beginning if you are diving into navigating these really big feelings. And I found that actually when I was involved in that therapy, I did MDR, and then I ghosted my therapist for 3 months because I had no tools and systems to work out all the feelings, all the files that were in my head of these bad memories and traumas. I had nothing to help cope with it. So with that being said, I think a lot of us have a lot of these mindfulness tools and somatic practices already within our reach, and we don't even realize it. Could you break down a few examples of what somatics looks like in a day-to-day life, whether that's like breath work, yoga? You kind of mentioned a few, but what are some things that people might not even realize are somatic work?
Yes, I actually love that you just named that, because it's so common for me to share a somatic practice with a client and they'll say something like, oh, I was doing that intuitively. And it happens most with the practice Borders of the Body. So Borders of the Body is a tool that just we're applying firm, gentle pressure to the borders of our body. So our limbs, our sides, down the legs. And that by applying that pressure to your body, we're activating the proprioceptive centers of the brain. So the proprioceptive centers of the brain tell us where we are in time and space. So it, in a way, does connect us back to our body, which is what the intention of somatic practices are, somatic tools. So borders of the body, if you're listening to this and you want to try it, just take both hands and bring them to opposite shoulders, and then just start gently applying firm pressure down your arms. Once you get to the hands, you can work your way back up. So a practice like this, a tool like this, isn't necessarily to fix anything. It's to put you in connection with your body so that you and to signal safety to the nervous system. So we want safety and connection, not just connection or awareness without safety, which is what I'll speak to when we get to the EMDR piece. So we want to be signaling safety to the nervous system while also facilitating connection with the body. And you said it before, the emotional piece, not having a way to process and move those emotions, right? So the intention of the tools are to get us in connection with our body in a way that feels safe, so that we can then be with what is present long enough for the emotion to actually resolve in our nervous system. So when we disconnect from our emotions and our body out of protection from discomfort, that emotion is an energy that gets stuck in the nervous system. This is what they mean when they say the body keeps the score. If we're not completing the stress cycle that is tied to our experiences, or we're not completely feeling an emotion so that it can move through us and then we release it in turn, all of that energy stays buzzing in the system, which is what anxiety is. And then after so long, we drop down into that shutdown burnout.
When we think about this, like if we simplify it, when you think of having a young child or a toddler, they're so good at exercising their emotions, but also getting it out of their body immediately as they're feeling it, right? When they're having a tantrum, they're fully on the floor having a physical response. At some point along the way, we are taught as a society that we no longer can express these big, hard emotions we're having, whether that's sadness, grief, anger. We're allowed to feel it. We're allowed to recognize it. We can offer ourselves self-compassion, but then we do nothing about how it exists or where it's forming in the body. And I think that was one of the biggest game changers when working with you, is the first thing you asked me is like, where are you feeling the sensation in the body? Okay, so you're having this moment, you're having this hard, difficult thought. Where is it living in the body? And I think as a client, I think that's probably one of the hardest things to first, identify and recognize. Can you give me an example of how you would walk through that with a client like myself when you ask me those questions, and where you're guiding them to when you're doing that?
Yes, of course. So our emotions live in the body. And so we as a society have a tendency to think about them because that's more comfortable. And like you said, as children, we're not given or modeled those tools to stay with it in the body, right? So somewhere along the way, we stop feeling safe to throw those tantrums and really express that energy. So inviting you into the body to explore what sensation is tied to this emotion was me starting to teach you how to stay with it, right? Because that's how we complete it. That's how we complete the emotion. So talking about tools and practices, that's another really good one for people to do. When you feel something, just start noticing where you feel it in your body. So when I guided you through that, what I did was I asked you to locate it at first, right? So we named a feeling, or we named resistance, or we named a symptom, anxiety, or something that came up, right? And I'll say, where do you feel that in your body? And sometimes there's no awareness, and then I guide deeper. Okay, is there anything happening in your chest? Is there anything happening in your belly? How about your neck? How about your shoulders? And so we usually then find a location. Sometimes the location is everywhere, and that's okay too. It's information. There's no right or wrong. We're just looking for information from our body. And at a stage like this, it's really just cultivating a practice of even getting curious about what you're feeling in your body. That's the most important thing. For a while, if you're doing this on your own, you might not know. So just staying curious, what could I be feeling in my body? What do I notice in my body right now? Maybe all you notice at first is disconnection. Can that be okay? And can you just name it without judgment? That's another really important thing for people listening who want to start getting into somatics and building this connection to themselves, is really just noticing without judgment what you're feeling. And sometimes, and at first, that might be numbness and disconnection.
A lot of the healing journey is a self-compassion journey, but you have to be able to identify like where that is existing in the body. I truly think like the mind and body connection is where you find healing. If you're disconnecting those two, you're going to have a much harder time getting to a place of where you feel contentment. And not only that, I think the evolution is, I'm not going to say that now that I do somatic practices, I'm happy, peaceful, and all the time. I just now have a toolbox of things that I can grab when I am able to identify a trigger or a moment. In therapy so much we talk about what are our triggers, and then we set boundaries. But what are the boundaries that we're creating within our own body, and how are we, helping our body seek nervous system regulation after we've had these kind of thoughts?
Yes.
I guess my question for you is, if someone has done talk therapy before and, they want to couple this with somatic therapy, are there any key differences that you would like to note that's going to look different in their healing journey than, just traditional talk therapy?
Yeah, it really depends on the therapist, because I see more and more therapists on TikTok really bringing in the somatics. And I'm always so impressed and excited when I see that, because it's like, oh yes, it's landing. Like it's the bridge is forming. There is a bridge, and hopefully one day all talk therapists will also be trained in somatics, right? They can go hand in hand. And so talk therapy is really more so just a top down approach, whereas somatics is a bottom up approach. So top down means we're working with the mind to create change downstream. Bottom up is we're working with the body with somatic tools, with somatic exploration, with somatic completion and processing to make change upstream. They're both important. One without the other can be tough, because even in somatics, we do a lot of talking, right? We do a lot of cognitive processing. It's just that we then bring that cognitive awareness and explore how that's showing up in your body in a moment, right? If we're working with a part, or we're working with a memory or a trauma or a core belief formed from one of those, we are then saying, okay, cognitively we know this now. What do you notice in your body in relation to what we're cognitively processing? And that's how we bridge the gap between mind and body.
Yeah. Obviously, I gave a little testimony to as like why I've come in and why I love somatic therapy so much. And I explained, I really was operating on overdrive. And I think there is this huge sense of burnout, even especially since COVID. I think a lot of people are becoming aware, we're 5 years out from a global pandemic. I think a lot of us have gotten back into a rhythm of maybe overworking or being in overdrive. Without you saying too much, what would you say a majority of your clients who are coming in, like what sensations are they feeling that led them to somatic therapy and versus just, maybe like traditional therapy work?
Yeah, it actually, a lot of my clients have been in therapy for years, sometimes 20 years, because I actually have clients who've been in therapy without any change for 40 years, right? And that's not to shame or discredit it at all. It's just that this somatic piece was missing, right? So I have clients that range such a spectrum, right? I have chronic illness, I have overproductive, urgency. I have shut down clients who are just really depressed and feel really low mood, low energy, low motivations, really
Yeah.
stuck on the bottom of the polyvagal ladder, which we talk a lot about, which is just shut down, collapse. So it's like at the top of the ladder is safety, the next ring down is fight or flight, so it's hyperarousal, mobilization. So I have clients that come to me with those symptoms, which is anxiety, unable to sit still, unable to be with yourself, unable to stop doom scrolling. You get a minute, you need this, you need constant stimulation, constant dopamine chasing, right? And then
Yeah.
yep, and then below that we have the freeze response, which is it's a mix of immobilization and mobilization. So it's a mix of fight or flight and that shutdown I was talking about. So after that, we have shutdown, which is depression, low energy, low mood, chronic fatigue, that kind of thing. So I have all of that. I have clients stuck in fight or flight, stuck in freeze, and stuck in shutdown. And the goal is to be able to access all states of the nervous system. We want to be able to feel safe. We want to be able to mobilize for threats and stress. We want to be able to slow down and immobilize when we need to press on that brake. We want to be able to move up and down. That's what regulation is to be able to access all of the states.
I think you said something there that's really important that I think we often misunderstand, which is fight or flight. And I want to speak to this because I think people think that being in fight or flight is a bad thing, but inherently, like, we need fight or flight. So I think it's just a matter of knowing how to support fight or flight. Could you speak to that, especially as a somatic coach? Because I know you really changed my whole perspective on this fight or flight concept that we so often hear is like a clickbaity word online.
Yes. So there are no bad nervous system states. None of the nervous system states are inherently bad. We need access to them all, right? So we call upon the fight or flight response or the sympathetic branch of the nervous system to get things done, to mobilize, to exercise, to problem solve, for conflict resolution. We need access. We need access to a healthy fight response to set boundaries. We need access to a healthy flight response to move forward, right? So
exactly.
The issue is that when we get stuck there, dysregulation is to be stuck there for an extended period of time. Regulation is to be able to get triggered into that state appropriately given the stress in your environment, or call upon it to mobilize and even play. When we're playing, we're in a fight or flight state. When we're playing, we're in a safe ventral state and a fight or flight state simultaneously. So there's so much good that comes with the fight or flight response. We really like to call it mobilization within the simple self because it brings this neutrality to it as opposed to like this it's just like misconstrued, I feel like, when we give it such a bad connotation as a society today.
We do. And I think a lot of our nervous system we misunderstand is like it trying to not support us when in fact it's here and built to help us. However, we have to implement tools that support it,
right.
Just so we can have these triggers, but we can have healthy relationships with them and understand how to move through them. I think within our first, few coaching calls, you really broke down a lot of the misconceptions for me. And I think another thing that you do so beautifully is you also identified my attachment style. Could you explain that? Because now I'm seeing that conversation happening a lot online, and I would love for people to understand like why this is brought up before we really even get into the somatic work in general.
Yes. So our attachment styles are so important to know. It's important for us to know our own attachment style. It's important for us to understand our partners and anyone that we're in close relationship with, because we are relational beings, and our attachment style forms between the ages of 0 and 3 based on our relationship to our caregivers. So the nervous system healing has so much to do with relational healing. So when we're in relationships and we're in healing relationships, not like trauma bond relationships, in relationships that actually we're working toward creating safety for ourselves and each other, that heals the nervous system. So if we're trying to heal the nervous system without relational safety anywhere in our lives, it can feel really challenging. So there's secure attachment and there's insecure attachment. Within the insecure attachment, there's anxious, avoidant, and disorganized, which is more of a push-pull. Anxious is more of an anxious, sensitive nervous system, needing a lot of reassurance, a lot of self-abandonment, not able to prioritize needs out of fear of abandonment. There's a deep fear of abandonment. There's a deep fear of abandonment in all of the insecure styles: disorganized, anxious, and avoidant. It's just that the person presents differently in how they're protecting themselves from abandonment. So anxious tries to avoid it at all costs. Avoidant will remain a little bit withdrawn, a little bit aloof, to not get too close, because if I get too close, I may be abandoned. That will hurt too much. Disorganized is a combination, a little bit of both, a little bit anxious tendencies, a little bit avoidant tendencies, and there's no black and white. It shows up so different for everyone, but I find that a lot of people are in that push-pull. That push-pull is very common. And there's so much that goes into our attachment styles and what forms it and what triggers it in a moment. But these things show up in the body. So when we're getting curious about what our attachment style is, it's like, what are you also noticing in your body? If you have an anxious attachment style and you resonate with what I just named about that, what do you notice in your body when you're relating to someone? Do you feel urgency? Do you feel like you need to, like you can't get enough and you just need more and more? Or do you feel like a little bit like you want to push away, right? Those are how the two can show up in the body in a somatic way.
Yeah, and when Nikki is asking the question, what's showing up in your body, she really means that in a physical sense. So are you feeling a tightness sensation in your chest? Are your cheeks getting hot and flushed? Are your palms sweating? These are all indicators that whatever she said may have triggered or enlightened you on, that is a true sensation that you're having within your body. Your body is trying to communicate with you as best as it can to give you the reassurance that, yes, something is happening here. It's hardwired in our brain and it's trying to work it out of the body.
Yes.
Once you are able to identify maybe people's, past triggers, traumas, and attachment styles, do you then curate different somatic practices to those individuals based off that, or is it all kind of different?
It's all pretty different. My approach is very intuitive and in the moment, and I'm really responding to the client as they're sitting in front of me. So there's nothing really curated about it because it's based in attunement. So we were talking about this a little bit yesterday, right? Attunement is our ability to be attuned or in tune with our body, our sensations, our emotions, and in turn our needs, because all of those things, our sensations and our emotions, are internal guidance, an internal guidance system for our needs. So when we can be in tune with those things and in tune with our needs, we then start to slowly learn how to meet those needs. So attunement is being able to respond to someone's needs in the moment. And when I'm in front of a client, my main focus is just attunement. I have to be attuned to myself. And the more attuned I am to myself, the more attuned I am to my client. And I just know what's needed based on what's presenting in that moment, because it's always different.
That's actually a really great, leads to a really great question is, as a coach, what are you looking for? Because I know we do virtual calls. So what are you looking for when someone is having a response? Because it is so physical.
Yes, it is so physical. And I'm looking at a lot of body language. I'm looking at, I'm listening to tone. I'm listening to patterns. I hear a lot of your parts, right? I hear a lot of my clients' parts come up in the language they use. So a lot of times it's a combination of I'm tracking your body language and your tone and your pauses and everything. I'm just in tune with your nervous system and your patterns, right? There's that pattern recognition piece where I'm also noticing certain language that you use. I'm noticing core beliefs that are coming up, and I'm reflecting a lot of that to you. And then we get to say, okay, what are you noticing in your body? And it might seem silly, but it's when we bring our attention to it, that's when things unravel. How many times have we been in a session and there's all of this activation coming up in the system and we're naming the parts that are trying to pull you from it, and then things start to settle and we go into the body and we stay with the emotion while also pendulating or resourcing with pendulation to access safety as well. So that might look like, as we're noticing this activation in the body, also me reminding you to bring your attention to the seat beneath you. Can you notice the support? Can you let can you just notice the experience you're having, while also reminding your nervous system you're safe to have this experience by showing it? Because the nervous system doesn't speak a verbal language. That's another reason why talk therapy alone doesn't work, because the nervous system needs to feel safety and it needs to feel neutrality. So we have to bring our attention to neutrality, which is a really big aspect of the somatic work that we do within the Simple Self. A lot of resourcing with neutrality to make it possible to slowly increase over time too the capacity to be with this discomfort.
What would you say to all the people who are like, this is all sounding a little woohoo, you know, because I'm sure you get that. We're talking a lot of energy work. We're talking being in tune with our body. I feel like a lot of mindfulness practices in general get this, you know, oh, it sounds so out there, so woohoo. I don't believe in that stuff. What would you say to that person who's on the fence about it?
Yeah, it's very much rooted in science, actually, especially the nervous system aspect of it, right? The nervous system, through the lens of, if this is something that you're interested in learning the science behind, polyvagal theory is a really good place to look. And I mean, anything about somatic healing is really, you're going to find the science behind it, because it's rooted in the nervous system. This is our understanding today of the nervous system, and luckily that understanding has evolved so much, I would say, over the last 50 years, because this is not how we were taught. This isn't even how I was taught about the nervous system in nursing school. It was very much outdated, right? And so it's very much rooted in science, and even our nervous system is our antenna. We are energetic beings. Our heart pumps electricity, right? Electricity is energy. So that's there's the science right there. Yeah. And so like we can actually measure the human energy field. The heart, the energy center at the heart extends out 12 feet. That's measured by frequency, you know? So all of this is very much science-based.
And I think the hesitation might be maybe a Western influence, because I can say if you're into is it Ayurvedic, is that correct? Like Eastern Asian, you know,
it might
influences
come a little
of
easier.
medicine.
Yeah,
it might, because like when we're talking energy work, we're also talking about people who are in tune with, you know, meditation, yoga, acupuncture. These things are all energy work systems. When you're going into an acupuncturist for the first time, they will tell you, before I'm an acupuncturist and I stick needles you, I'm an energy worker. And they make that very clear, because they are working with the nervous system and they are clearing these energy channels that live within your body based off the information that you're bringing into the session. Whether you're working out physical discomfort, trauma, they're opening those channels, and that's exactly what somatic work is. I always tell my friends, I'm like, you know, the somatic practices themselves, the mindfulness practices, whether that's grounding in the grass outside barefoot, or it's dancing in your kitchen, going to a yin yoga class, yes, maybe all of that to you sounds a little woohoo, but all this is rooted back to your nervous system and your brain. And all of that is based in science, and you can't deny the science element of somatic work.
Absolutely, yes. And all of those things are amazing tools to support the nervous system, to invite the nervous system to slow down, to sync the nervous system with the frequency of the earth, which is inherently grounding. It's the most grounding frequency that is, you know, present to us. And so, yes, to everything that you're saying.
What's your most challenging element of, you know, being a coach? So for myself, I'll give some guidance for everyone listening. I did a 12-week course with Nikki, and from there, then I re-signed, and I'm seeing Nikki about bi-monthly at this point, just to couple with my talk therapy, because I know how important these tools are to have at my disposal, but it's also not going to shift overnight. You're not going to start grounding and then all of a sudden have this, you know, groundbreaking transformation. So what's something that's like probably the hardest element of your job, or what do you hear as the feedback that people are expecting in a healing journey? I think you know where I'm going with this, because, you know, I came in as someone to you who just wanted efficiency. You know, I'm like, I'm on my healing journey. I want to be better now. And it's like, that's not quite how healing works. Healing is a lifelong journey. takes rest.
Yes.
And I think a lot of times we have a lot of discomfort in rest. So what's some pushback that you get from your clients, or what are their expectations that you have to work through?
Yeah, so I've gotten really good about naming it up front that this is more of a long-term commitment, a lifestyle, and it takes a lot of time to help a nervous system feel safe. It takes time and it takes consistency. So when I'm working with clients with complex trauma or chronic nervous system dysregulation, I have clients going on a year and a half we've been working together, weekly or bi-weekly, and it's not a requirement to do that, obviously, but that's just, there are so many layers, and so the journey is not linear, and that's something that I have to remind my clients a lot of in the beginning, because despite all the disclaimers and me naming that up front, we're conditioned to think that if we're seeing old patterns, we're doing something wrong. If we're slipping, we have this linear way of thinking. It's like forward and backward, but the journey is really a spiral. And with every time you come around to something that you feel like you've already learned, or you thought you completed this already, you thought you moved on from this already, you're just getting to the next layer. And so we have to go deeper and deeper and deeper into our own body. The more safety we have, the deeper we land in our bodies. So the beginning of doing this work is really about learning how to cultivate a sense of safety for yourself. That's why the tools are important.
I was just going to call that out. I was like, if anyone is listening, I want you to hear right now. I think for me personally, in talk therapy, I learned self-compassion and then naming the trauma or naming the experience, right? Somatic work has allowed me to feel safe again. And you cannot heal and you cannot function at your best self, whether you're a mom, whatever you are, whoever you are as you show up in life, you cannot be your best self if you do not feel safe. Yes. Safety is the number one tool to truly becoming who you're meant to be, but also supporting yourself in the safest way possible.
Yes. If you don't feel safe, then that means your nervous system can't access safety, and we have to train it to be able to access the safety that already exists in your life first. And so when we don't feel safe and our nervous system is hypervigilant to just threats and stress, we're always going to be reacting out of a self-protective state. That's the fight or flight, the freeze, and the shutdown. Will chronically be in those, one of them, or bumping around, ping-ponging around between all three. So safety is everything, and we can create that for ourselves to an extent despite our external environment, but a lot of times to go deeper, we do need to be able to also cultivate that in our environment too.
But I think that's the difference between body and mind. Mind can understand it. Intellectually, you can understand the trauma, but your body is the one where your emotions actually live. And I think that's the misconception as we go into talk therapy with the expectations, this is going to make me feel better. But a feeling is an emotion. And I'm telling you right now, that's wrapped up in the body. Because if your body can't feel safe when you're experiencing the hard, you're never going to feel good.
And you're never going to be able to be fully present to experience the joy and the good. So a lot of times people come to me super disconnected from all the uncomfortable emotions, but they're chasing the comfortable ones, but never fully feeling them. As soon as we start to allow, remember when we looked at the emotion wheel and we saw it was right? So when we start to have more capacity to feel the discomfort, all of the uncomfortable emotions, we get deeper access to all of the comfortable ones like joy, gratitude, happiness, love, all of it.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite practices that you do with me in our sessions is pendulation. And I'm looking at our time. We're about 37 minutes here. So we're going to end here pretty soon. But I was wondering if maybe you could walk us through a brief pendulation practice. I think that would be really cool. And also give people an insight to what that even is. I'm sure we're saying that term and they're like, what do they even mean by that? So could you give a brief example of what that is?
So pendulation in the short term can help bring balance to the nervous system and in turn result in a bit of relief in tension in the body. And over time, it increases our capacity to be with discomfort. So we can do a micropendulation practice, and you guys will be able to do this, take this out into your daily life too. So start to just get in a comfortable position and notice your breath. So noticing your breath as the air travels in through your nose and out through your nose or mouth. Now you're going to start to pendulate or shift your attention back and forth between your internal world and your external world. So on your inhale, I want to invite you to notice your internal world. That could be your breath, any sensations present. And on your external, start to notice something about your external environment. It could be the air against your skin, the noises in your environment. You could do this visually. So with each inhale, bringing your attention to your internal world, and with each exhale, bringing your attention to your external world. Shifting your attention back and forth between the internal and the external. Noticing how this feels, noticing if there is the desire to be more present with the internal or the external, and which one that is for you. Without judgment, just noticing it, letting it be information. And coming back to the sounds around you, the breath, beginning to come back to the space. What do you notice at this stage in your journey? Do you lean more toward wanting to be aware of the internal or the external during something like that, Shelby?
I think for me, it was the external. However, my first thought was, wow, I wish we would have started with this before we started the podcast episode.
Next time we will. Next episode.
Right? Because I was so excited to come on. I really want people to know the impact of somatic work. And I think I was already in this like hyper arousal state. Yes. I was ready to go. I just wanted to talk about it. And like you brought me down and grounded. Yeah. And I like just had this moment of like, you know, I can convey the same messaging without having to feel like I need to be in hyper arousal, which is, if you resonate with my story at all and feeling like you're in overdrive and you need to over accomplish everything, where I feel like we're constantly operating in a state of hyper drive. So no, it was nice. It brought me down. I think the biggest thing is when you're talking about doing a practice like this, it really is allowing you to recognize what's happening in the mind, but also pulling you out of the mind too, you know? You can identify like you have all these stresses and to-do lists and what ifs, but if you can bring yourself back out of it,
absolutely.
Like in the moments where you say, you know, feel the seat underneath you, start wiggling your fingers, it's that presentness, it's the mindfulness that brings us back to where we are instead of living in what happened before and what's going to happen.
Yes. I have a teacher who says the only thing that exists in the present moment is the body. So as soon as you think a thought, it's already in the future. It's already in the past. All of our thoughts are either past or future oriented. So this is the direct way, like to the present moment, is to be in connection with the body. So that's the biggest somatic practice I can offer, is just notice your tendencies for disconnection. How does disconnection from your body show up for you? What feels accessible when you get curious about what it looks like to connect to your body? Maybe it's dancing, maybe it's walking, maybe it's noticing your seat a few times a day, maybe it's noticing the sensation of your feet as you're walking or just standing somewhere. Maybe it's looking around the room and noticing the colors or noticing the sounds. All of these things are somatic tools and ways that we can get back into connection with our body in really small moments. It's the small, consistent moments over time that create the really big, lasting change and the capacity to go deeper into the system and really start accessing those deeper childhood traumas and even later in life traumas that a lot of us experience.
But also just the day-to-day traumas
Just the day-to-day
and triggers.
Stress, yes.
Because you really can't even manage that other stuff until you start managing 100%. The day-to-day.
That's it. The day-to-day is where you have to start. Yes.
Yeah. Because I think of, you've probably given me over 20 tools and resources. And I think the thing people need to understand if they are going to start this journey of somatic work is, what works for someone else in their somatic journey isn't going to work for another person. For me, I've been able to identify that walking, yoga, and then if I'm having a hard moment, I will start to identify colors outside. We've all seen that color walk that's gone mega viral on TikTok and Instagram. that's a somatic walk. They're identifying colors. They're getting out of the head and they're getting back into the present.
That's called orienting. That's
orienting.
a practice that we'll do
orienting.
on a future episode. We'll walk them through orienting.
Yeah. Orienting is probably one of my favorite tools for when I'm having just one of those in the moment mom triggers, everything's overstimulating. I just take a moment and I start, identifying what I'm seeing in real time, like for example, right in front of me, like I have a computer. The computer is chrome. It's black. I see sun outside. I see some rain. You're just bringing your senses back into the actual moment you're living in versus the reality that you're creating in your head of the worry and the stress and the what ifs. I don't think that somatic work is about, disconnecting from your mind, but it does definitely help you dim the light. It's like a dimmer switch, and it's dimming the stress in your mind so you're able to come back into the present, which allows you to refocus and regroup and say, how can I actually safely and effectively work through this problem without feeling so dysregulated?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's some of the best work I think anyone can do. I'm so grateful I had you on today. I know we could talk for hours. And I will probably have you back on again. So I would love to get everyone's feedback from this episode. So if this is something you liked hearing from Nikki, you are more curious about somatic work, please let us know over on Instagram, slide into the DMs, leave a comment here, a review. We would love to hear what you would like us to expand on, because we know we just only got to the surface of somatic work. Nikki, I always like to ask at the end where everyone can find you, where are your channels, and how you can best help them after listening to this.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram and TikTok at NikkiIvory_, and I offer one-on-one coaching, and I also have a digital product, a course actually out with Lauren, who, like we said, is the founder of The Simplest Self. So that's a collab between her and I, and that is available too for a more self-paced option. This is really great for beginners and people that just want to learn more about their unique nervous system and how to begin signaling safety to it. And we have an expansion of that course coming soon too. So we'll probably be sharing that on the next episode that we do together.
Yeah, the course is a great way to get your toes wet. Obviously, investing in this coaching work, this 12-week program, is an investment. So I think the course is a great way to get started, but it's the best money I've ever spent is, putting myself first, doing this work, because at the end of the day, I want to show up as the best mom I can be, the best wife I can be, and the best person I can be. And I definitely think that this is just a tool that's allowed me to expand as a human, but has really transformed my healing journey. So just thank you so much. You know how much you mean to me already. I'm so grateful that you came on. You were able to offer this to my audience. I think it's going to be very transformative for them. So
thank you so much.
I appreciate you.
Yes, I appreciate you so much. I'm so honored to be on your journey, and I'm so glad we got to do this. This is so cool. Thank you for bringing me on.
It won't be the last time, but until next time, this is the Shelby Say What podcast. All right, friend, that's a wrap on today's episode. I hope you're walking away with something that uplifts you, challenges you, or makes you feel a little bit more seen. If you loved this conversation, it would mean the world to me if you subscribed, left a review, or shared this with a friend who needs it. The more we build this community, the more we can all grow together. You can always find me over on Instagram at Shelby Say What blog. Slide into the DMs, let me know what you loved and what you want to hear next. Until next time, keep showing up for yourself, keep building that confidence, and remember, you're already so worthy. I'll see you next week.